Okay, go ahead, John.
Okay, I believe it is 8:30 on June 4th, so we can start the Economic Development, Historic Preservation, and Environmental Conservation Committee. And Ms. Robertson, if you would like to take attendance.
I see Dart Strayer, Matt Yetto, Dennis Brennan, Kevin Walsh, Michelle Martinelli, Supervisor Syed, Stan Fominski, Ismat Alam.
Yep, I'm here.
Hey, Stan. Josh Hawley. I saw that Paul Briggs just joined. And who's on the phone? Who's with the *52 number?
That's me, Laura.
Oh, okay. Hi, Paul.
Okay, very good. And I am not aware of anything from the public, but do we have any public concerns or comments?
I don't have any currently.
All right, very good. And if you would like to go ahead and start into the COVID updates and the resolutions.
Sure. So the only reason I left the COVID-19 updates is I just wanted to have a quick discussion with you guys on if we could, well, sort of two things. I know that Planning Board and Zoning Board has to go to in-person meetings at the end of this month. So this Monday's Planning Board meeting is still going to be virtual, but the second Planning Board meeting of this month is going to be in person, as well as the Zoning Board at the end of the month. But while we're still ramping up, I was wondering if we can still have our committee meetings, some of them, if it makes sense for them to be done remotely for a little while still.
I don't have a problem with that. I actually think it's a good idea. I don't want to inhibit public access, but we don't generally get a lot of public coming to our meetings, so I don't think that would be an issue.
Yeah, we almost never, like, tree council or Conservation Advisory Council is probably the next one we have to work towards having in-person meetings. They would probably have an in-person meeting in July, but like Tree Council and Complete Streets, we don't even have a way of recording them if we meet in person. We just do audio. So that was something I wanted to put out there. And then the other thing is paper packets, which we've talked about now with the Planning Board and the Zoning Board a little bit, is if we can continue moving forward with just electronic packets, the amount of paper that we make for the Planning Board and the Zoning Board packets. Clark's done an analysis. It's a lot. It would definitely save the town some money and some staff time to not have to do paper packets unless someone really required it. But we're trying to logistically figure out how we can do electronic packets for the Planning Board and the Zoning Board. I didn't know if the town board had a discussion. One of the things that we had thought about maybe is that we could have just iPads, or not iPads, tablets that just sit in the town boardroom or locked up in the IT room and then can be taken out for the planning board meetings, and they can have the packets kind of preloaded so that any board member, town board, planning board, zoning board member would just be able to pick up the tablet at the meeting and open up the packet.
That does not sound like a bad idea to me. I am still comfortable with paper, but I guess if any member has a preference, they could still get a paper packet. It does make sense, though, not to produce all this paper that a lot of times doesn't even get thumbed through.
Laura, the only problem is casting, any drawings or maps or presentations. Still being able to do that. So if the expectation is that the applicants come in with drawings and put them back on the tripod like we used to do, we got to make that clear so that the camera can zoom in on that stuff so the public can see it.
Yeah, we were talking about that. And definitely, like, at big drawings, we would still print out hard copies of big drawings for the planning board members, but the majority of the packet probably can still be electronic. The zoning board almost never has big drawings.
Yeah, instead of the town printing them out, you can have the applicant make sure that they provide the copies to the planning board. That might be a way of doing it too, save money.
Yeah.
Laura, can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
So do we already have these laptops or do we have to buy them?
Well, we don't have them yet. And so that was one of the questions we had. Like, we can show that not doing paper packets saves us, probably, I don't know, Clark has the cost analysis out there. I think tablets these days cost probably like $150 a person, but typically these things aren't rolled out at the planning board or the zoning board level. They're rolled out at the town board level. I noticed that the town board mostly has their own like tablets. So like our thought was to begin with, it would probably have to be some kind of a hybrid where the planning board may be bringing in their own technology to have the electronic packets there. But I think going in the future, it might make sense because it's just going to be a hodgepodge of technology coming in and out. Like at my old job, we definitely actually at my old job, we had iPads. But I don't think we should do that here because they're very expensive. And they would be there for the people with the agendas loaded. And it worked great.
No, it's a great idea. I mean, it's a wonderful idea, but it's just, but let's talk later. How about
Okay. Maybe there's some kind of a COVID grant out there for getting
exactly.
Yeah.
You read my mind.
Yeah.
You read my mind. That's exactly what I was thinking. But it's nice to see you back.
Thank you.
Yeah, as far as though from a member, I think electronic makes a lot of sense. I've found it very convenient, particularly since I have all the old packets on my computer now. And if I want to reference something, I can just pull it up as opposed to having paper copies all over my house, cluttering it. So I definitely am for electronic copy. I think that's the way to go.
Well, and one of the things we would like to see if we could figure out, but this is a Seth question and he's not here, is that it has worked well for planning board and zoning board and CAC to have the ability to share the screen, because it actually works better than the little tiny paper maps. Well, they're not tiny, they're 2 feet by 3 feet. But when somebody puts a 2 foot by 3 foot map up in the town boardroom, and then the kids in the video room, which by the way, we don't have any right now, but the kids in the video room, if they're there, like zooming in on that map, it's still not great. So like when we were able to share screens, one of the positive things about the virtual meeting is that everybody could see what everybody else is looking at very clearly. And so we were wondering if there's a way, if we're doing electronic packets, that we just always have the screen down and we share screen. I don't know if we could like integrate that into the video somehow or not, but that's definitely been a benefit of the virtual meetings.
I agree with you. So let's look at it together.
Okay. And Seth too.
Of course.
Yeah.
The IT tech guru.
Is Matt like this one? We also needed an 80-inch flat panel screen to replace that pull-down screen in the boardroom.
I think you're daydreaming now.
If you get a grant, include that, please.
Anything else for your wishes?
That's easy from the house.
Okay.
Okay, so then the next thing I have on there, I think that's a good discussion, is the resolutions that we need. The first one, and I'm sorry about this, I didn't think that we were getting resolutions for submitting grant applications. I thought that we weren't doing those anymore, but apparently we are. Are we always doing them now? Do we have clarification on that? Always? Okay. So
no, I don't know what passed.
Okay. For a while we were doing them and then the direction was very clear we're not. But now we're doing them again. Yes?
I guess so. That's what we have been doing.
Okay. Paula Briggs just left.
Yeah, I think it's more of a law question.
Yeah. So for now, the resolution submitting the grant application to the Niskuna Community Foundation for the natural resource inventory. That was one of the things that we had asked at the last budget. We may still actually, we will need more money for this, but this is like seed money to get it going, which would make it more competitive for future grants. And I think it's the $2,000 one. And that's the inventory that I talked about at length at the budget meetings, which is critical, I think, for being able to make decisions, both planning board for when the developer comes in and town board when the town owns land. So this is something that is very time sensitive, and this would be seed money to do like a phase 1, which would be like just a quick overall inventory, and then like phase 2 would be diving into the different types of habitat and getting public comment and all that kind of stuff. So
Okay, didn't you send me something and I sent it to the grant writer?
yes, yep.
Okay,
Well,
so-
I still need to send you some more things, but yes, it's all interrelated.
Gotcha. Okay.
So that one is pretty easy if anybody has any questions on that. The second one is the resolution calling for a public hearing for a telecommunication tower at 1 Research Circle. This is a cell tower, but the planning board held its public hearing and had no public comment, which is very unusual for a cell tower. But it's because it's on an existing water tower at GE. So as far as cell towers go, the impact to the community is pretty minimal. This is GE Research Circle here. You guys are probably all familiar with the big water tower they have in the back. Oops, let me just make this a little bigger. So that's the existing water tower, as you can see from River Road. This is new solar panel array that they put on. And if you see, like, whoops.
Is it on there in that picture?
Yeah, they're right here. Do you see them?
Oh, great.
So this is without them. This is with them. Here's another picture without them.
So you can't notice anything.
With them. Yeah, it's very hard to see. This one, I think you can see. Here's without them. Like, if you just sort of look at this second bar there.
Boy, that's an obtrusive.
There's
tower.
with them. That's from Clifton Parkside.
Yeah, Bryan Drive in Rexford.
And so, like, you can get a sense, like, of the size of the, oops, here's the, this is existing, right? So they're not putting this up. This water tower exists just as it is. And they would be putting 2 sets of arrays here and here. And it's very minimal compared to the size of the existing structure. Like, our code asks for you to use co-location in existing structures if possible. So it's compliant with our code. And this is kind of the coverage area that it would include. So here's kind of some of the gaps in the coverage. There's some neighborhoods along River Road. And then there's a whole bunch over here in Clifton Park. And then that's the proposed new coverage.
So with this, will this take care of all the existing gaps in the town, or will there still be some?
I think there still is. If you look at this, there's still some down here by where Mohawk Road hits Rosendale. Looks like there's hardly any coverage there. And actually, this is River's Ledge over here.
Wow.
So it's plugging most of the holes in the town of Niskuna. And again, this is just for Verizon.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things that planning board had said is that, if this is an approved location for a cell tower, then any other carriers could just come in as a building permit, like AT&T or whoever. But yeah, there's still a couple little holes, but it definitely plugs a big hole in here.
Now, I thought the other carriers were allowed to piggyback on these poles. Aren't they kind of one for all for one, or no? So this is just Verizon, but can't they join like T-Mobile and...
When like Verizon builds the tower, they do typically allow for other carriers to come and lease space on their tower. Well, it's not even Verizon that builds the tower. It's usually either Tarpon or Crown. But our code, I think, is a little bit vague. So when we worked on the WTRY tower, we put in the special use permit, we put in an allowance for any additional carriers to come in by building permit, just to be clear. And so the recommendation was to do that on this one as well.
So presumably Verizon is paying GE for that.
Yeah. Yep.
And so now AT&T doesn't have any right to piggyback on that. They would have to just be at GE's mercy, or we don't know.
We don't know that, although I do think, Kevin, didn't the planning board ask, like, I believe that Verizon is, planning that once they work, like, Verizon seems to be the one that pays the path in Niskayuna, but once they work out the deal with GE, it was the expectation that other carriers would go on there, right?
Yeah, that was the expectation, that they could co-locate. They just have to do like an engineering analysis to make sure they don't interfere with each other before mounting their antenna, So I could see it, if, AT&T or any other carriers have a hole or a gap that would require them to go there, they would have the opportunity. Doesn't mean they have to, because they may not need to,
Okay. Thanks, Kev.
So it's not that often that telecommunications tower is so far removed from residential. Very little visual impact to the town. And like I said, we had no public comments at the planning board meeting. So our recommendation is for the town board to call for their public hearing and issue the special use permit.
And then, of course, it'll come back to the planning board for site plan approval. So the only question there is, Laura, do we need anybody to look at it from an engineering standpoint? The answer is probably no, but just the building inspector or whatever.
Yeah, I had talked to Matt Yeto about that a little bit. Like, it does need a building permit still, but we don't need the same kind of engineering analysis because it's not our tower. So they just have to, show that they're meeting New York State building code. And we typically have used a TDE to validate the need for the coverage. But in this case, because there's so little impact, a TDE evaluating, the numbers that they do to crunch to make sure that they truly need to come into the spot is probably not necessary. So I think that at least my recommendation is that we don't need a TDE, and it doesn't need like special analysis by the engineering department because it's not our tower. So that's on GE's side.
Yep, and I agree, because obviously they wouldn't invest the money if they didn't need it, right? So I don't think we need to prove that they need it. So,
did anybody have any questions on that one? Okay, so then the second public hearing that we are asking to call for is 2141 Eastern Ave. It's a mixed-use building right across from Temple Gates of Heaven on Eastern Drive there, right behind Union. And this is what a preliminary elevation of the building would look like. This is the site plan. So this is an existing like 1.5 story brown building. It's kind of drab. It's mostly vacant because of when they built 1769 Union Street. The doctors that were in this building moved to 1769 Union Street. And so, that doesn't look like the right building. Okay, sorry.
Is this the Lisi project?
Yeah, it's the Lou Lisi building.
All right.
That's definitely not the right one. Maybe the wrong address. But anyway, it's kind of a low building, and the proposal would be to take that whole building down and then add a little additional green space and put a 3-story building in its place. So I think CSG's looked at it quickly. Planning board has looked at it a couple times now. 3 stories is a little high for the surrounding buildings, like B'nai B'rith and 1769 Union Street. Or sorry, not B'nai B'rith. What are the ones that are over there? Kevin, help me. The apartments that are right across from St. Kettery. Brookdale. The Brookdale. Yeah, they are 3 stories. And 1769 Union Street is 3 stories and everything. But so the main impact that at least CAC and Planning Board were worried about was the size of this building. So like working on it architecturally to make sure that it's pleasing and that it fits in with the neighborhood.
Looks really big there.
Yeah, exactly. Bringing the size down a bit was a couple of the comments that they're working through the developer on. But again, because the town board they call for a public hearing, then they hold a public hearing. It can, it can be a 2 to 3 month process. At least getting the process started by calling for the public hearing at the town board level makes sense while we're working through some of these details.
Yeah,
What's
Laura,
in that building?
Right now, it's vacant. What this proposal would be like commercial space on one side, rental units on the other side, and then second and third floor apartments.
It's not a very attractive building, is it? Dark? Would that pass the architectural review muster?
I don't know that the architectural review board has seen it yet, but David DiArpino has started working on it with the developer, and yeah, I think like he said, and Kevin, jump in here. I know he was working on it.
Yeah.
Like it needs more relief on the facade. Like it needs
Right.
to go in and out a little more.
I talked to Clark yesterday. The architectural review board did take a first look at it and had some comments on the entranceway and the front facade. So that's so I already had a cursory look at it, and it sounds positive, the outcome. And the other thing that's important here is that it doesn't need a height variance. He's going to keep it below the 35 feet required, so there's no variance. It's strictly it's permitted. Just a matter of whether he gets a special use permit and site plan.
And the special use is for what?
It's a mixture of apartments and commercial space. So it'd be a total of 8 apartments or 10 apartments in the building, 4, and 2 on the first floor.
And some commercial space.
And commercial space.
So why would you need a special for that? It's not just R2 there, is it?
No, it's neighborhood commercial, and anytime you do a new building in neighborhood commercial, any use needs a special use permit. And if you were even if he wasn't taking the old building down, he was converting the old building to a mixed use building, it would still need a special use permit because it's a substantial increase to the building that was there. It's actually very zone dependent. Neighborhood commercial requires a special use permit a lot.
Yeah, and the only question I had, Laura, is that we haven't had our public hearing yet at the planning board level. So we're waiting for elevations to call for ours. So we probably should have ours first before it goes before the town board has their public hearing.
Yes. Yes. So we can just put this one as tentative. And if we don't have ours by the end of the month this month, then we would put it on economic development again next month.
So the height there is 35 feet and he's going to stay within that?
That's what the proposal shows right now, yeah.
Now, did the Fusco, did he stay within the 35 feet, Kevin? Do you remember on his project there across?
I recall, yes. He dropped the roof line in order to meet it. Right, Laura?
Yeah, he was denied his variance by the zoning board for a height. And what he ended up having to do was a couple of things. He did drop the height of the roof, and there were 2 entrances into the building because we calculate height by average grade, and he removed one of the basement entrances. So the basement entrances were really pulling the height of the building to be higher, right? Because you're measuring from the top all the way down to the basement. Mm-hmm. And so when he removed one of those, the average grade also got a lot better for him.
Okay. Huh. All right. Well, it sounds like this most likely is going to go through, Kevin. It's just a matter of what the final thing is going to look like, right?
That seems reasonable. Obviously, you got to wait to hear what the public says. There might be something that we're not thinking of, but that's why we'll have the public hearing and hear what they have to say.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
The key to that one, I think, is to try and keep the scale of the neighborhood as much as the best can. Okay, so I think, let me pull up the agenda. Sorry, that's all I had for resolutions. Did anybody else have any resolutions that they thought of? Okay, so under discussions, we had an idea for EV charging stations at Blatnick Park. And I believe that Councilwoman McGraw has been working with the county on this. I got an email, not just yet this morning, I think, identifying some places where we could put new EV infrastructure. So that would be, I think, very exciting to get some EV infrastructure in our parks so that people can go and recreate and charge their EV vehicles. That's a great way to actually bring people into your park and also a benefit to residents. So that's exciting. I will keep you guys updated on that if you had any thoughts. I think our
All
first
right.
installation of EV infrastructure went really well, so I'm hopeful that we can do some more there. And then the Climate Smart Communities grant application, I think I had sent a little bit of information, but I will try and make sure that I get more so that we can work towards that. We're much more competitive on that grant than we were the last time we submitted, so I do feel like we should be able to get some help from New York State on our Climate Smart initiatives, hopefully this year.
Well, there is there's a focus from the government on that. So let's grab the opportunity. So send me whatever you have today, and then I will coordinate a meeting with Sue and us.
Okay. Thanks. Did anybody have anything else they wanted to discuss? Okay. Just quickly, I do have still some openings on advisory boards. I'll keep working on them. We did appoint a couple new members last meeting, so that's great. The Knott Street area improvement progress, still need to get a final drawing for that. So that's kind of in progress still. The planning board has got I would say a relatively, they're looking at a fair number of things on Monday. Target staging areas, a couple subdivisions there. The Eastern Parkway building, they're still working on. The changes to upstate guns and ammo on State Street, they're still working on. And some little things. I know Dennis is here. He can talk about the historical code updates that they're working on as well, but we can do that later. Is there anything you wanted to add for planning board, Kevin?
No, I was just taking a look at the agenda. I think you hit the big ones. Most of it's discussion. As far as resolutions, it looks like, a resolution for the Fillmore, subdivision or combination of lots over on Fillmore. And then we may have a resolution, recommending the town grant the special use permit for the cell tower at GE Global, or at least a tentative resolution for that. And that's pretty much it. So it should only be an hour and a half long, this meeting or so.
Yeah. Paul, I think maybe we didn't squeeze the land transfer onto the last town board meeting. Is that right? We probably need to make sure that that goes on this meeting. I'm just going to grab a pen.
Yes, you're right. We do need to do that.
Okay, so I will add that to my other resolutions. Email. Okay, so when I email that to Elena, I'll make sure that that gets included. Land transfer. Okay, sorry about that. Just thinking out loud.
Wait a second, Laura. Which one are you talking about?
The one on Fillmore.
Oh no, we did have that at the last.
Oh,
meeting.
you did squeeze it
Yes.
on?
Yes, we did. I'm positive. I'll check.
Okay, you guys are pretty
If
awesome.
not, I'll get it. If not, I'll take care of getting it to Elena.
Okay. I know it was real close. You had everything. You definitely had all the information together and we're ready to go. I just didn't know if it got squeezed on or not. Okay.
You can take it off your list. I'll take care of it.
Okay, cool. Great. Thank you, Paul. Zoning board's got 6 cases for June. So still a very heavy caseload on the zoning board side. We're still seeing a sort of massive uptick in building permits at the building department. Haven't been here for a while, so I don't really have any grants updates, except that I know that we're trying to close them out and get reimbursement working together with the finance department. Complete Streets is still targeting an event probably over on Wyoming to take a look at some of those concerns that they've been hearing from residents. Tree Council's got a special meeting scheduled for this month, working on really diving into the street tree master plan. Climate Smart Communities Task Force just had another meeting. And again, I'll get this information to ISMET, but probably the Climate Smart grant right now is their #1 priority. The Architectural Review Board, Clark's been working really hard with them. To Kevin's point, they had a meeting and did look at some projects, so they're working away on stuff. If anybody knows any architects or anybody who's in a related field, please send them to me, because we only have 2 people on that board and it is a really important board. So if we were going to have any holes to be filled in the town of Niskuna, our greatest need right now is the Architectural Review Board. If anybody knows anybody, we could really use some help. Building department, again, very high on the building permit side. Plus side, also high on the revenue side. Planning department, pretty busy. Paul Briggs, did you have any legal updates that you wanted to do?
I do not.
Okay.
I do not, thank you.
Thanks, Paul. And then Dennis, do you just want to talk quickly about your historical code that you've been working with the planning board on?
Yep, just to turn my mic on. Yeah, we have we put together a second draft of the preservation code. Just a few minor changes on the first draft, and I believe it's going to be taken up at not this next planning board meeting, but the one in, when is it, 21st or 28th, Kevin?
Yeah, well, we'll talk about it again. I did send a Word version over to Leslie Gold. She agreed to take another look at it separately from us, and so we're waiting on comments from her, but I think it's close to move it forward, whether it goes through the planning office first and make sure they're comfortable, or legal, or any other committees. So I think we're close.
Yeah, I think we'll have to go through legal sort of as a last step, make sure we've got all our I's dotted and T's crossed and all that sort of stuff. But I think it was gonna go the second June planning board meeting, and I'm not sure whether it's the 21st or 28th.
Yeah, it's 3 weeks out from Monday, right, Laura? It's the end of the month, so.
Yeah, so.
The 28th then, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's all I've got to say about that.
And thanks, Dennis, again.
Yeah, I did write.
Yeah, and so we talked about that.
Back to me, but Kevin, you sent it to her, because I wrote
sent it
to her, but she never got back to me about it.
I sent it to her, Dennis, the latest version I had Word, which I think is the latest one. Yep.
Right.
Hey, Laura, was the CAC going to see that as well, or?
Oh yeah, I will put. I can put that on you guys' next meeting as well. So we talked about it at the last Economic Development Committee meeting, in that it's not restrictive to properties, but it does designate certain areas as historical, which should help both with the comprehensive plan and with planning board reviews of these properties, and has some teeth for, well, not teeth, but like has some review for demolition, so historic homes can't just be removed without at least somebody looking at them. So there's some really good stuff in there. I think it's a good first step. It's not all encompassing, but it's definitely a good first step. Okay, so did anybody else have anything they wanted to bring up today at the meeting? I see that Councilwoman McGraw joined us.
Hi. No, I didn't have anything else. I just wanted to, did you talk about the fencing around the dumpsters?
I did not.
I've also noted that the meeting is only a half hour when I wasn't here, so I don't want to hold it up.
We do have, like, so one of the complaints we've been receiving is sort of screening on the dumpsters at the Van Antwerp Village. There's a fair number of dumpsters in that area that are under the same issue, and we're not sure if it's actually a true code violation or not. There is a code section that we found. We need to run it past Paul Briggs to make sure they're not grandfathered in any way. But if we can apply screening of the dumpsters code to properties that have been there for quite a while, there's a fair number that would require citation of that.
Well, have we talked to the owners of the apartments? Are they not willing to do that on their own, or enforce some type of cleaning up around there?
Yeah, so we have talked to them. They do when we get complaints, they do pick up the garbage. I think the last couple of times the building inspector has been out there, there's not been a violation, a garbage violation. I think they on their own put up a couple fence panels to keep so they have like a dumpster and then they have like
And then they took them,
can.
and then they took them down. So
Oh, okay.
yeah, so it's either that they're going to be cited in some way, or we're going to look at the code, John, and what I mentioned to you, and I think you agreed, was that we were going to then propose some change to the code if it isn't already there, that dumpsters like that are going to require fencing around them. A lot of other municipalities do it. If you think about it, when you see dumpsters at some other point, you'll realize they're fenced around. And so we're going to have to do something, especially when we have a situation like that that's right so close to other residents.
Yeah, and I've looked at the code a couple times with Tom, and like I said, we did identify a section of code that we think we
Yes.
can use. We probably need to run it past Paul Briggs before we went out and cited them. But kind of the issue is that we'd have to drive by a couple of dumpsters that essentially have the same issue in order to go cite them. So that makes, the building inspector a little uncomfortable. We would probably maybe need to do like a uniform citation, at least for the ones that we see in that corridor. Because you can't, if it's very obvious that that once you cite one, then they're like, well, my next door neighbor isn't doing it. So we do know that this is gonna be a little bit more work, and that we that we need to run the citation past Paul Briggs.
But generally, the dumpsters are part of a complex, right? They're not individual residents that have the dumpsters. So you would think that the owners of these complexes would be a little bit more cooperative.
Well, so it's interesting, like planning board actually looks at dumpsters for site plan, right? So new site plans have dumpster locations that are required to be enclosed. Van Antwerp Village is a pretty old place, and I think that the dumpsters have over time made themselves at home here and there, but their locations were never like approved by planning board, but they were also probably in some ways pre-existing non-conforming, which is why we just have to run that past Paul Briggs if we can enforce the screening that the planning board typically requires for new site plan, if that can be enforced on older site plans that didn't initially have it.
Thank you. Okay, and Denise, quickly, is there anything that you wanted to add? I know you're doing stuff with the EV infrastructure in the parks.
So the county is moving forward in putting up additional electric vehicle charging stations. Laura and I had been having a conversation. One of the things that the electric vehicle fair or rodeo, whatever we called it, pointed out was that despite how excited we were when we got it, our EV charging station at the town is already pretty outdated. So I think there's a fair amount of grant money out there for this, and working with folks who are already doing it, we could, at a bare minimum, get our EV charging station at the town upgraded. We're working, the county's probably going to do the library, I learned yesterday. And then we're probably going to identify a few other locations, such as Lions Park. They would like to do the co-op. So Laura, that was the email I sent to you of who we have to talk to, because I know there's various property owners over there and who owns what. So, and the high school.
Excellent. Thank you, Denise.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Okay, everyone. Sorry to hold up the meeting.
No, I think that's great. All support for EV charging stations. The more infrastructure we have, the better. And the co-op area is a great spot for it because, again, town center overlay district. So the more people we can bring to park and walk, the better.
Yeah, that was what I was thinking.
And there's quite a few EV vehicles out there, as we witnessed at our event last weekend. So, and that they're just getting more. So I think the demand is going to be there. They'll be used. Okay, is there anything else for the good of the order? If not, I will make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that, John.
Okay, is there anybody against? We are adjourned until July 9th, and that will still be virtual. Yes, Laura?
Why? I don't think so. I don't even know why
No.
we were virtual this week.
I think, Denise, we talked about just briefly keeping some of the committee meetings.
Okay, whatever you
virtual.
say. Isbit's got her hand up. I don't, whatever you do at your committee, it doesn't matter.
That was the previous hand up.
Oh, okay.
So I'm putting my hand down.
Goodbye.
I'll jump in really quick. Laura, we just need to make sure that there's an executive order by the governor that permits us to meet telephonically or via video conference software. That's the reason why we've been able to do it. Otherwise, there is an in-person requirement. So let's just check Committee on Open Government's website. It may have been extended, in which case any committee that wishes to continue meeting remotely can.
Yeah, so to be determined, although if all of the committee meetings are expected to be in person next month, I don't think that there's any reason that we couldn't meet in person next month. I'm talking more about like the nighttime meetings, but.
And when is your meeting? Are you going to later in the month?
The next Economic Development Committee meeting is
July 9th.
July 9th.
July 9th. Okay, because I was doing the 8th. That's why I was holiday weekend. Okay.
Okay, so we'll have that be to be determined.
All right, very well. July 9th to be determined, and we will see you all before then, I'm sure.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
guys.
Good to see you,
Thank
Laura.
you.
Hope you're enjoying, Laura. Bye.
Have a
Bye.
good day.
Bye-bye.
Have a good day, everyone.